From the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Thursday, September 5th. I'm Abby Larico. Missouri is making it more difficult for people to change the gender listed on their state IDs, and that is making some people feel marginalized and unwelcome.
I felt so powerless because my voice isn't heard. I'm not affirmed here. I'm not seen as something that's equivalent to humanity.
We'll hear from someone who is moving out of the state because of rules like this in Missouri, coming up after the news on The Gateway. Vernon Betts has lost re-election as St. Louis sheriff. Wednesday, elections officials completed a recount of the ballots from the August 6th Democratic primary. The results confirmed that former sheriff's deputy Alfred Montgomery defeated Betts. State law allows for a recount when the margin of victory is less than 1%. Montgomery originally won by 256 votes. The recount showed him winning by 221 votes. Betts was first elected sheriff in 2016, beating a longtime incumbent. The most prominent responsibility for the Missouri Secretary of State is to oversee elections. As St. Louis Public Radio's Sarah Kellogg reports, the Democrat running for the position disagrees with her opponent's vision for tabulating results.
State Representative Barbara Pfeiffer says she decided to run for Secretary of State because Democrats needed a strong candidate for the position. She's running against Republican nominee State Senator Denny Hoskins in November. Hoskins wants to hand count ballots in Missouri elections. Pfeiffer says statistically, election results are more accurate and faster by using machines to count ballots instead of by hand.
What kind of discord develops after an election between machine counting or hand tabulation? And we've seen just a lot more discord with the hand counting. So I see absolutely no advantages to hand counting.
Pfeiffer won her Democratic primary in August with almost 41% of the vote. She is currently a state representative whose district includes the Kirkwood area. I'm Sarah Kellogg, St. Louis Public Radio.
Pfeiffer was a guest on Politically Speaking. Illinois will likely appeal a federal judge's ruling that a state ban on carrying firearms on public transit is unconstitutional. Capital News Illinois reports the lawsuit in northern Illinois challenges the ban that dates back to 2013. Plaintiffs claim it violates the Second Amendment, and last week a judge in Rockford agreed. But Attorney General Kwame Raoul's office says the law is still in effect because the ruling only applies to the lawsuits for plaintiffs. His office says it will likely appeal. Governor J.B. Pritzker says he is hopeful an appeals court will overturn the ruling. The Illinois Department of Transportation recently shut down a well-traveled ramp from Interstate 70 to Interstate 64 in East St. Louis. And that means big changes for commuters traveling eastbound across the Stan Musial Bridge because, as St. Louis Public Radio's Will Bauer reports, repairs won't be finished anytime soon.
IDOT found a failed expansion joint earlier this summer on the exit. In order to repair it, the agency shut the ramp. District Operations Engineer Joseph Monroe says there was an option for a quicker temporary fix, but
we would have been trying to attach a temporary repair onto a failed system. It just isn't a safe approach. I realize it's inconvenient and people are not happy with it, but we don't compromise on safety.
Monroe says IDOT doesn't have a definitive end date or cost because the agency doesn't have repairs finalized. They have started the construction process, though, which will last at least into 2025. An estimated 13,000 drivers take this exit every day. The westbound lanes will remain open during repairs. I'm Will Bauer, St. Louis Public Radio.
A St. Louis developer wants Bar K out of its space. Developer Green Street is suing the popular dog-friendly venue for not paying roughly $300,000 in back rent. The Forest Park Southeast location of the business, part indoor-outdoor dog park, part bar and restaurant, opened in late 2021. The lawsuit was filed in St. Louis Circuit Court last week. A new community development corporation has formed between 3 North St. Louis neighborhoods along the forthcoming Brick Line Greenway. St. Louis Public Radio's Eric Schmid reports the corporation will help people who live in the area drive and define future economic development.
The Brickline North Community Development Corporation brings together the Grand Center, Jeff Vanderloo, and St. Louis Place neighborhoods. These are parts of North City that could see economic revitalization spurred by the Brickline's pedestrian and bike paths. Chris Peoples directs equity and economic impact for Great Rivers Greenway.
Activating the business corridors, bringing these major arterials back to life also helps pull people out of neighborhood to a centralized place. The Brick Line is only going to be successful if people are using it.
Peoples says the new Community Development Corporation will help the three neighborhoods speak with a unified voice. He adds it also creates the framework for economic development on business corridors that aren't directly on the Brick Line. I'm Eric Schmid, St. Louis Public Radio.
Here's an intriguing term that's been making headlines recently: corn sweat. It describes how corn and other plants can contribute to humidity. But as St. Louis Public Radio's Kate Grumke reports, there are bigger factors at play.
Corn sweats, or releases moisture, earlier in its growing season. By this time of year, it's not doing that as much. A lot of the humidity we feel in the Midwest often moves in from somewhere else, like the Gulf of Mexico. But climate change is also increasing humidity in our region, says Trent Ford, the state climatologist for Illinois.
What climate change is doing, first and foremost, is it's increasing our temperature, kind of the background air temperature during the summertime, as well as all other seasons across the Midwest.
Warmer air can hold more water, which allows for more humidity than we felt 30 or 40 years ago. I'm Kate Grumke, St. Louis Public Radio.
In August, the Missouri Department of Revenue updated the process that Missourians must go through to change gender markers on a state ID. A new rule requires either a court order or proof of gender reassignment surgery. But as Anna Spidel reports, advocates, health law experts, and LGBTQ+ Missourians say the new regulations could create serious problems for transgender, nonbinary, and intersex people in the state.
Amaria Hardwick began her transition as a transgender woman at age 17. At the time, she lived in Detroit, Michigan. Hardwick would later move to St. Louis to pursue her degree at Harris Stowe State University. But when she got to Missouri, she says the culture shock hit hard. She lost access to parts of her health care and experienced discrimination.
I came there to be empowered by getting a degree, but I felt so powerless because my voice isn't heard. I'm not affirmed here. I'm not seen as something that's equivalent to humanity.
Now, Hardwick is 24. She has her degree. She's a National Advisory Board member for transgender advocacy group Transformations, and she's moving out of Missouri. She says that it's not sustainable to live as a transgender woman in a state that regularly introduces policies and legislation that target trans and gender nonconforming people, such as Missouri's new driver's license rule. Early in August, the Department of Revenue eliminated Form 5532, which was a document signed by a medical or social service provider that allowed Missourians to request a change in gender. Instead, there's a new process. Department of Revenue officials declined a taped interview for this story, but in a statement emailed to KBIA said, quote, customers are required to provide either medical documentation that they have undergone gender reassignment surgery or a court order declaring gender designation to obtain a driver's license or non-driver ID card denoting gender other than their biological gender assigned at birth, end quote. Robert Fisher, communications director for Promo Missouri, a statewide LGBTQ+ advocacy organization, says the change came as a shock. Fisher says that the decision shortly follows an incident that occurred in St. Louis County. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey opened an investigation into a national gym chain, Lifetime Fitness, after a transgender woman was allegedly allowed to use the women's locker room facilities at the Lifetime Fitness in the town of Ellisville. Bailey couched his investigation as a matter of public safety, but Dr. Gary Wright, an assistant professor of science education and vice president of Columbia area LGBTQ+ advocacy organization The Center Project, says science has yet to show evidence that having transgender people in restrooms creates unsafe environments.
There isn't data to support that claim. It's sort of this master hysteria that typically conservatives latch onto to justify their anti-LGBTQ rhetoric.
Marcia McCormick is a professor at St. Louis University School of Law who specializes in sexuality and the law. McCormick says that because many transgender people choose not to undergo surgery, policies that require surgery can create hardship for transgender and gender nonconforming people.
Focusing on surgery really limits who can even change their gender designation in a way that means that half or fewer of transgender people can even ever take advantage of this. And it pushes people towards surgery that may not want it.
Additionally, the policy uses gender reassignment surgery as a broad term, even though there are a variety of surgeries that fit under this umbrella. McCormick says that it's unclear what degree of surgery is required to change a gender marker.
I'm Anna Spidel.
The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Abby Larico, and from the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this has been The Gateway.